One day I was in Tottenham, and I was feeling quite pleased myself that my Ceres was the big selling tea. And I was speaking to this guy, Rashmi, he said, nah, the top selling tea in this shop right now is lemon and ginger by Chinese. I said, you make it joke. He said, what's so special about that? He said, I don't know, people like it. So I went home, and then my mom was in the UK, and I saw a box by her. And then when she was about to brew it, I saw her go and get a piece of ginger and start scraping more ginger inside.
Okay.
Like, why are you buying that? She said, well, it's got a good taste, but it's not gingery enough. So I'm like, I'm going to make a lemon and ginger that you're going to feel the ginger. You see what I'm saying? So Twinings made us lemon and ginger. I was weak with a bit of lemon. I make a lemon and ginger that's strong in ginger.
Hello, welcome to the How I Crushed It podcast, the podcast that shines a light on talent in the community. This is a special Elevate series of the How I Crushed It podcast, proudly brought to you in partnership with the Black British Business Awards. With the 2025 ceremony coming up this October, we're shining a light on some of the incredible past winners, celebrating their journeys, their successes, and the powerful impact that they've made in their industries and their communities. This week on the podcast, we have on Mark Dalgety from Dalgety Teas. Dalgety Teas was founded in 1993 by Mark and is a UK-based herbal tea company known for its 100% natural blends rooted in Caribbean and African traditions. Today, the business offers 36 different varieties of tea. It's stocked in Tesco, Sainsbury's and Asda, and has developed into probably the most successful Caribbean-owned business across Europe. This is me with Mark Dalgety. Mark, thank you so much for coming down. You've flown all the way from Guyana, especially for this interview.
Almost.
Maybe not.
Almost.
Not quite the truth.
I had to hit the timetable, so I mean, it was a priority still anyhow.
I mean, basically for the guests at home, I called Mark last night and I didn't realise he was in Guyana. And he's come all the way to the London studio just to do this interview. But you're staying for another 10 days, right? 9 or 10 days.
Yeah. I mean, in London for the National Carnival promotions, and obviously usual business is normal, see clients, and then I'll be heading into West Africa in another week, 10 to week or 2 weeks or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll touch on the traveling that you do as part of your business, but let's go all the way back to the beginning. You were born in London, in fact, but then your parents sent you back to Guyana quite early on. What are your earliest memories of growing up in Guyana?
The earliest memories is everything, because I was actually sent to Guyana when I was 1 year old. So I didn't really come back to London on my own until I was 19.
Okay.
Apart from a couple of holidays when I was a teenager. But the earliest memories in Guyana is, I would say, exciting. Because my grandfather actually was a farmer, and he had hundreds of pigs and cows and rice fields, and although I would say the urban kid, I was sent into the country to do my part of farming, with my cousins and so forth. So it was pretty exciting, I would say.
Okay. And your mum was a social worker, your dad was a chemical engineer, and there's a bit of a history of chemical engineers in your family, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. My dad is to be correct, is more industrial chemist, which is almost chemical engineer. I'm chemical engineer. My sister is also a chemical engineer. We tend to be science people. My aunt wrote, which is my dad's younger sister. She's a chemist also, and she wrote I think the chemistry book right now, that or the science books that are used in the CXC examinations in the Caribbean, and is involved in a lot of science and so forth.
And then on your, I'm not sure if it's your mum or your dad's side, but some of your cousins, they've got interesting sort of stories. What kind of work did they do?
Oh, on my mother's side, a lot of people are seamen. So a lot of them, my grandfather on my mom's side, was actually a seaman from in the 30s, traveling all over the world. As a small boy growing up, you hear all these countries that you never heard about and what happened there and this and that and the sea and so forth. So
how cool is that? Fantastic stories, as you say. By all accounts, a fantastic kind of happy, I guess, outside childhood.
Yes.
In Guyana. What kind of kid were you? If I was to ask one of your one of your old friends back in school, what kind of kid would they say you were?
Very reasonably disgusting, very inquisitive about everything. If there's any trouble, you would hear it's Dalgety and the boys. Yeah, it's never, the other boys and Dalgety was there.
Yeah.
I was open to, I think from a small age, even in terms of when I think about it, entrepreneurial, the word wasn't there then, but always happy to look at doing any transaction business. I mean, at 13, I started keeping these big song system dances in Georgetown in Guyana. But I mean, from early stage, always adventurous, into sports also, very much a sports person, sports personality at school. I think even at my school, which I went to, a school called Queen's College in Guyana, I think I still hold on the 15 high jump record, which is like about, I don't know, 6'4" or something like that height.
Okay.
And the school is 182 years, so I mean, it's nobody hasn't jumped that high as yet.
Stood the test of
Yes,
time.
exactly.
Yeah. So just to paint the people at home, paint a picture. You were 13 at the time, and somehow you were able to promote these parties where you got almost like 400 or 500 people at the party, right?
Yes.
And you were obviously making a profit off each ticket.
Oh, yes.
So how were you able to do that at the age of 13?
I don't even know. I mean, somewhere along the line, one of my friends, a bigger guy that I knew, had a song system called Quantum Theory. So he started promoting his song system to have these parties. And then one of my other good friends, one of my childhood friends, his name was Whitey. He was also tall for his age. So two of us were very close to one another. And then we just keep up this idea, hey, something, why don't we keep a dance? You could make some money, you know what I mean?
But I mean, this wasn't the only kind of business that you were getting involved in as a teenager. Correct me if I'm wrong, you were also getting involved in importing trainers and selling them on in the markets, and then also a bit of foreign exchange. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, every time I travel, I just made sure that, I mean, there's certain trainers, because in those days, Guyana was going through, I mean, certain economic challenges, in the 80s. And foreign currency was a big issue. So sometimes if I get a chance to travel, I would always make sure that, I mean, I buy certain trainers that I know that big guys wanted, right? And literally could put a price up 200-300%, because it wasn't, you couldn't find it,
Yeah.
and I would just put them in my suitcase, and my little pocket money my dad give me, and obviously some of the money from the dance, I would turn that around. And then more interestingly, they had two markets, which happens, I think, up to now in some countries. In a foreign exchange market, they have the banks where you could go and change your money. And then there's always what you call, now they call it cambios, which is supposed to be official. But then they have the non-cambio guys, which is the guys on the street corner, that are literally changing money. And normally the rate on the street corner, right, is the highest rate. But it's just that it's a bit more risky, because sometimes people don't want to go on the street corners to go changing money, because in case they get robbed and so forth. Yeah. So I obviously, for keeping these parties, I knew a number of guys on the road who were changing money. Yeah. So I would normally do it from school days. I mean, if I know any one of my friends who's had family that came into the country, I would tell them, look, I'm buying currency. So in those days, I mean, in Guyana, like say for a pound, I think it was a pound was actually like $5 or something like that then. But the road might be paying $10. Okay. So that I might offer, say, for instance, because they wouldn't go to the guy on the road, I might say, well, I'll pay you $8. Okay. Because then I pay them $8, right? And then I go to the guys on the road who everybody's afraid to go to and sell them for $10 and make $2 and they will be quite happy.
Okay. So I mean, showing lots of promise as a teenager. And did you have thoughts, as a teenager, of basically following almost like the family tradition of going into chemical engineering, or what kind of thoughts were you having?
I mean, I always would have done science. I mean, actually, to tell the truth, I originally wanted to do agriculture. I mean, I actually was in the agriculture stream. I was very passionate in agriculture, because even at home, I had a couple of what we call beds, in the back. I used to grow a bit of like tomatoes and so forth, At school, we also, as part of the curriculum, I was growing tomatoes and cucumbers or something like that, And so I was very passionate about doing this whole agriculture until when I was doing my A levels. in one of the subject headings, they hit something like the difference between an agriculturalist and an industrialist. Industrial chemistry is more between being a chemist and a chemical engineer, because I mean, chemist is a person who develops things in a lab.
Okay.
I mean, industrial chemistry is probably a bit more to do with mineral-based chemistry, because there's different levels of chemistry, whereby chemical engineer is basically the person who turns the stuff in the lab into a full-scale factory, full-scale operation.
Okay.
He's going to move, what you did in the test tube with 2 millimeters, he's going to turn it into 10-ton operation.
So you talked about getting A levels, getting a distinction in one of your subjects, and eventually you make the move back to the UK, because as we said at the beginning, you were born here, but you left at the age of 1 year old. What made you come back to the UK at 18 or 19?
At that time, I mean, obviously I was born in London. So, I mean, from an educational point of view, there was various options in Guyana. I mean, you could have already gone to Guyana, University of Guyana, which was also having challenges at that time with regards to whether it's books, the right teachers, because obviously they weren't getting paid that well and so forth. So that was one option. Then the other option was obviously to be able to get not a grant, but a scholarship from the government. And at that time, most of the scholarships were mainly going into Russia, Germany, a lot of Eastern Bloc countries, China. I mean, a lot of my friends studied in those places, So I think I was reasonably lucky, because then I knew I could just jump on a plane and come to London, So that was the simplest thing, without finding myself in a situation whereby, because once you go on the scholarship, you have to go back and serve the country, I think for 4 or 5 years or something like that. So I mean, my next shot was just to head up to London. I actually bought my own ticket, because I mean, I can remember my parents saying, I mean, you want to go up and so forth, and what's the ticket? And I said, but I actually got the money.
You come to the UK. I think this was at the height of the recession, or maybe just a bit after that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was the height of, I think it was just after the coal miners strike.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's Margaret Thatcher days when, everybody was striking. And I mean, it was just, I mean, England was cool and dark almost.
So this would have been, was it 90?
No, 80.
Oh, 80.
88.
88, okay.
88-ish, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, sometime around 88 or 85.
And how was that adjustment for you?
Oh, I came hungry. I began to make money real fast.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the interesting thing, I end up jumping on a job in those days called dispatch riding as a courier. One of my friends from Guyana was over here, and he started working on the construction sites. So I mean, we didn't have a lot of friends and so forth. But the good thing about him, he was also a kind of like he was a interesting guy in terms of that he didn't mind taking risk. So I couldn't have met a person, a like-minded person. You see what I'm saying? We were hungry. We just arrived. We were like 19. We wanted to do things, And then he was looking in the papers, right? And he said, "Hey, there's this job called dispatch riding, and it says you can make £300-400 and £500 a week. I mean, no qualifications needed." I'm like, what? Are you serious? All you need is a motorcycle. And I love motorcycles then, I mean, it's right up my creek, I mean, I think, I don't know if the fun was to make the money, or the fun was just the fact that they were going to ride a motorcycle all day long along London, And he also used to trade with cars. So he used to go, because he liked fiddling with the cars, so he used to go to these auctions sometimes, from the money he had earned from his working on the construction site as a laborer, and started doing a bit of juggling. So then he said to me, he's going to buy a bike for me, and I pay him back, right? And he said to me, I just went long. I think it was the first company I worked with, a company called Concord. No, not Concord, Olympic. And there's actually simple questions. Where do you know? And I said, I know North London. I was staying in Tottenham, and a little bit. I didn't know anywhere, actually. It was only 2 weeks after I arrived. I mean, I didn't even know how to find the office. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and guy said, okay, fine. And started the next day, and I mean, it was absolutely chaotic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just lost all day long. I mean, you just arrived from Guyana 2 weeks, that you're there on a motorcycle, so you're delivering mails. I mean, I think the first week I made about £13. It was nothing really, nothing near the £300-400.
And of course, this is back in the day, pre-internet.
Oh,
so you had to basically
every single
find
day.
the street yourself.
There was no fax.
Yeah.
I mean, probably fax might have now been emerging. There's definitely no emails. You know what I mean? Every little mail someone wanted that was urgent, right? Or a draftsman doing a building, an architect, urgent bank, everything was going by couriers, you know.
So how did you find the streets? I mean, how did you get familiar with the
You
addresses?
wouldn't believe it. I began to study it.
Mm.
I literally, I mean, you know, but the black cab drivers do the knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, I turned the whole dispatch right into the whole science. I mean, I literally began to write down every street I went to, how I got there, and the weekends I came back, or just for a little dispatch job, I did a job, you know. Because what happened, I began to realize to make money in it is not about speeding, but it's to have a knowledge of the streets.
I see.
And every time you have to go into the map and read and work out how to get there, you're losing time.
Yeah.
You know? So the faster you could get there is based on the knowledge of the streets. You know, so I literally started studying the A to Z, or the street finder.
Okay.
You know, I began to write down. I mean, eventually I started earning about £100 and 140, and I think about in about 6 months I began to become one of the better riders on the circuit. You know, but then what happened is that what was interesting, there was a Italian guy, Antonio. He was like the top rider on the circuit, and then he left and he went to this bigger company called Concord, who was guaranteeing that once you come out in the morning from 8 and stayed until 6 or something like that, they would guarantee you £250. And you know, in those days, I mean, I was making about 200. So I thought, well, so when he saw me on the road, I mean, sometimes I used to see him on the road. I'm on my bike, and by that time I'd gone and taken the test, and I was now getting a bigger bike now. And sometimes I see him on the road and said, "Hey, Mark, guess what? Last week I made 400, Mark, 5 in the distance." I'm like, you know, son, I'm going to Concord. So he introduced me, and I went over to Concord, because Concord was like one of the real big companies then. They eventually sold their outfit out of Federal Express, you know.
Oh, of course.
But they had like probably about 100 or 200 riders on the circuit, all these big greasy riders, you know, with leathers and all this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was an interesting journey, to tell the truth. I got to know London inside out from doing that.
Yeah. And, you know, as you said, as well as doing that, making quite a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean,
you made so much money that you were able to...
I bought a house within about 18 months of arriving here. I was 20.
Exactly. I mean, I think for a lot of people...
And that was when it was supposed to be the worst time in England.
Yeah, recession and etc., high interest rates.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people today, the idea of being able to buy a house in London, I mean, I don't know where you bought it, but to buy a house in London off the salary of a dispatch driver, it's just unfathomable now today. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I might be incorrect, but so it was clearly like a different time. I mean, the amount of money you were able to make as a driver.
It was, I mean, I used to wonder why other people weren't doing it. You know? I mean, I used to meet guys, I mean, who were smart enough, who actually got degrees, and they were actually working in dispatch riding.
Right.
They just finished studying University of London. They were saying, like, I'm just doing this for a few years to get enough money to, you know, to build a house or buy a house. I mean, and even in my case, I mean, I think why I was saving left, I actually thought, I didn't know anything about mortgages and all this kind of stuff. I thought if you wanted a house, you had to save the money and just go to the house shop and say, okay, are you selling it? Okay, here's the money, and give them the cash. Until I met an old school friend, a girl who went to, but she came up early, right? From Guyana, and you know, she was working in a bank and so forth. And I met her one time, and she said to me, "Oh, she bought a house." And I, "How the hell you managed to buy a house?" And then she said, "Oh, you need something called a mortgage, and you put on deposit and this." And I said, "I thought you just had to go and just give the guy the cash." I was saving my ass off trying to work. How long it's going to take me to do that?
Yeah.
I said, "No, this is what you have to do, and you link me to a mortgage thing." I had my right deposit and all this kind of story. And that's how I ended up buying a house.
Yeah. I mean, again, just for people at home, you were able to buy this house. You were still late teenager, maybe early 20s at this point.
Yeah, around 20.
I mean, just fantastic. I mean, very, very few people, I imagine, back then were buying houses at the age of 20, 21.
Yes.
And then after that, you decided to, I think you did that job for about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, just for 3 years, and then obviously I mean, I got a bit worried. Well, you know, I think what happened once I was making the money, one of the things I was worried about is that I don't want to be one of those kind of folks who, you know, there's me at 40 years old riding on a motorcycle, delivering mail still, and then you haven't done anything with it, and then you're talking about what you used to have. Because I mean, apart from even buying the house, I mean, the first car I bought was like a BMW. I didn't even have my license. I mean, I did a drive around in BMW, sent back to Guyana. I bought a fancy gold chain and a fancy hat and like proper West Indian driving around,
Okay.
big long sound system and driving around Tottenham, keeping a set of noise. One day I just got up and took myself, what this? You need to pull yourself together, son. You know what I mean to say?
Yeah.
That you're just going to be one of those guys talking about what you used to do
Yeah.
and you don't have nothing. And then I refocused my mind.
Oh, so you went back to university?
Yeah, I started studying about 22, I think it was. And I mean, some of my associates from Guyana, if they stayed in Guyana, some of them would have gone into university at 18. So some of them would have been finishing at 2022. So to me, starting to study at 22 was kind of like a bit late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I thought, well, in those 3 years, I'm going to flatten it out and make as much money as possible because I know when I start studying, there's not going to be any money coming in.
But I mean, by all accounts, you were a pretty rich student. I mean, you had this house. I think you let out a couple of the rooms in the house.
Some students, yeah.
So that obviously gave you a bit more extra cash.
And then the dispatch riding came in handy because I knew
Yeah.
and I became a taxi driver whilst I was a student. So instead of flipping burgers, everybody was heading to the burgers and the restaurants. I was there in my car. I mean, I changed the BMW. I bought a nice four-door, I think it was the new car these days was a Ford Sierra. Or something
Oh,
like
yeah, I remember those.
that.
Yeah.
And on the weekends, I'm making myself a nice, easy 150, 200 pounds,
Yeah.
which is what most people were earning per week.
Yeah.
As a student, because I knew London very well,
Yeah.
I linked back up with the same dispatch coming tell them, look, I'm a student. I want to work on the weekends as a cab driver.
So you had this good system in place, man. I mean, just
Yeah.
almost like well, clearly paying your way and a bit more,
Yes.
not having to use loans or any kind of thing like
Exactly.
that. You had the scholarship as well. So you got your degree, and then what was the thought process after that? What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, then again, I think by the time I completed the degree, they had the stock exchange that crashed when I was in the my second year. When they had a big stock exchange crash.
Oh, because
so
of the
when I-
exchange rate mechanism.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
major crash. There again, there was issues with getting jobs. I was kind of like, I gotta say, semi-lucky to tell the truth. I ended up with getting a job at an American company that was dealing with corn milling and all this sort of story. But I always remember that, I mean, sometimes to get a job, you literally got to, I mean, I could remember going through all these interview papers, and I used to be at home and I'll answer all of them and practice how I'll speak and how I'll posture myself and all these things, to ensure that I get a job. Because I mean, I already know I had an accent in the first case. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, and luckily, I think American companies are very interesting because I mean, they sometimes, especially the kind of company I went with, they're looking for people who are also thinkers. So you don't necessarily have to be a first class, had a first, a double one or anything like that in the degree.
Yeah.
They're looking for somebody because I mean, it's a factory. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And you have to work with normal people. So they were always afraid of having these total nerds there, right? They want to have people who could flex and work in the factory and have a beer with the guys on the ground and the guys feel comfortable that a younger guy is telling them what to do.
Yeah.
I landed that job, and I was planning to work there for a longer time, to tell the truth. But then after a year, I decided, my dad was doing some business down there and I thought I'd go and help him. I just thought, look, any high risk things you're going to do, really and truly, you might as well do it when you're young. You don't want to be doing anything crazy when you're getting older.
Yeah.
So after a year, I actually just headed down to Guyana.
Okay. So you moved back home?
When I went back, my dad was actually building something called sodium silicate factory, and he was having some challenges, So I thought, well, I did chemical engineer, might as well go and see what I can do, But the challenge I had really is because I had the mortgage in London. As you know, I bought the house. I was trying to live in Guyana, but with a mortgage and things. So although, I mean, my dad couldn't even pay me eventually because I just said to him, look, something, I'm just going to work on commission only. Because if you're working commission, then that drive me to earn money that I needed to live.
Okay.
Because in no sense me saying to him, oh, that I need this amount of money to live on, and the company's not making enough money to pay me. But then if I work on commission only, then my paycheck is depending on the effort that I put into my work. But I had to come up here every 3 months or 4 months to balance my accounts. So I would come up and go and do the mini cabin. for like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Put some money inside to cover the mortgage for 3 months, and then I head back to Guyana again, so that I wouldn't have to, because I just wasn't earning enough money. I was living pretty well in Guyana, but not
Yeah.
enough to go and pay a mortgage while living there in London.
But wasn't the flat rented out? Couldn't the rent cover the
No,
mortgage?
because by that time, what had actually happened is that my sisters came up from Guyana.
Oh, okay.
And they were studying,
Okay.
and I basically give them the apartment to
I
give them
see.
a start.
So, yeah, I mean, we talked about traveling right at the beginning. I mean, already you've got this history of traveling, coming into the UK every sort of 8-9 months, staying here for 2-3 months, doing a bit of cabbing, going back to Guyana. And then when did your life change after doing this?
I needed to find a way of how I could be in Guyana and earn foreign currency, and that became my wish, And on one of the trips, basically, what transpired is that I just arrived in London, right? I was actually beginning to say, okay, because I had a friend in Guyana, I'd helped him do some pineapple exports to Barbados, right? So I said, oh, that's interesting. Okay. Probably I'm going to go and look and see if there's any pineapples needed in the UK, because the whole idea was if I could stay in Guyana and sell something in the UK, right? Then I could earn the foreign currency and not have to come do many cabin.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that became, after I saw him selling these pineapples to Barbados, but why can't we send pineapples to England?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then, as I did a lot of research on the pineapples, I realized the risk was pretty high, because you remember pineapples are perishables. So you really got to understand what you're doing. And I mean, and whilst you're on the road, you hear different people that collapse, because I had a friend who started doing some pumpkins, and they didn't the pumpkin went to the refrigerated container, and I don't know, the refrigerator didn't work, but all I know is that when it arrived here, all the pumpkins were rotten. So anyhow, within that journey, I mean, I was there in Brixton market, just walking around, and I met this Chinese guy who had a grocery store there. I think I was speaking to him about this pineapple, and he said, "Oh, could you get some cerasee bush?" Right? And he said Corilla bush, because in Ghana we actually call it Corilla bush. Oh, that's a bit unusual, because I mean, this is really a bush that is it sells in the market. The country people bring it down, and people who are into more medicinal herbs that don't want to drink, Milo and all this stuff, they're more into this sort of stuff. I mean, a lot of rural people grew up drinking it, So I thought, well, that's an interesting request. The question I asked him is, how much does he want? And he said, any amount. Well, I mean, this bush grows all around the cane fields in Guyana. I mean, people are almost weeding it and getting rid of it because it's a nuisance,
Yeah.
So I said, okay, any amount. So I said, okay, 5,000, 10,000. And he said, yeah, that's all right. I always say I took a leap of faith there, because I mean, I know the guy, he's not a mess around kind of guy, what I mean? I say he's a pretty, straightforward businessman. He wouldn't say unnecessary things. I bought the next ticket to head back to Guyana, because I knew in the area, in the country where my grandparents, where I used to, go and graze cow and help my granddad, that all loads of all this Corilla bush growing,
I see.
So I just went back in the area there, got some of the guys from the village and all that, helped me, collected about 1,000 pounds of it. I went home, and I mean, as I said, my parents wasn't in the country.
Okay.
And I started with the scissors, and I cut it into 16,000 1-ounce packets,
16,000. So how long did that take?
I think about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Wow.
I mean, all my hands were sore. I mean, it was painful.
Yeah.
What I mean? It's just sit down with a scissors. Is it? I mean, if you think about this studio, I mean, it's this size with all these leaves.
Yeah.
You sit down with a little plastic bag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Putting it into, and then I put a little photocopy label in it.
Wow.
I mean,
16,000 of these little bags.
yes, 16,000 of them in a bit of scissors.
And you did all this off the word of some guy you met in the market. You had no guarantee, obviously no contract, no agreement,
No,
not even a
contract, no
handshake.
agreement. No,
Not even a handshake.
No, well,
Just
I mean,
a
not even a handshake, because,
Yeah.
because he said to me, bring it. I mean, I said, I know that the guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not a mess around guy. You see, I mean, I know to tell the truth, he was making a lot of money. See, a lot of Jamaicans, they drink all this stuff all the time, because you see, cerasee is good for diabetes.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people from the Caribbean suffer from diabetes.
Yeah.
And when medicine is not working, cerasee works. And then I remember the same Corilla, my aunt,
Oh, okay.
who had diabetes, right?
Yeah.
She used to drink it also.
Okay.
So I also believe in it, because to tell the truth, when I was a teenager, At one point, I can remember having a lot of pimples on my face, adolescent pimples. And I could remember used to asking my cousins from overseas to send all these fancy creams, right? And most of them didn't really work that well anyhow. Sometimes you sleep with all this cream on your face, thinking these pump. And then that same aunt of mine, she said, "You need some Corilla Bush, man. Your blood is too sweet. Because you're a teenager, you drink a lot of sweet drinks. Anything nice and sweet is what you love, And I mean, somewhere along the line, I mean, I think I probably had trying to get some date with some girl, and I was a bit conscious of all these pimples on my face. So I picked, because this Corilla Bush is actually bitter.
Yeah.
It's very bitter.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously for a date, you're like, well, I mean, if this is going to help get rid of these pimples. So I started drinking the Corilla Bush, and it actually cleared my face up.
It did.
It did.
Okay.
I mean, I never thought I was going to get into business with it, but I mean, I knew the product. You see what I'm saying? I never thought that would have been the start of a global business. You know what I mean? The bottom line is that I went and I bought it back up. I think he took about 10,000 or something like that off of me and paid me, and I was like, okay, and I kept back some, and I thought, well, I mean, what the hell is he doing with this stuff here? And I just started walking the markets, selling, because I think I got 50 pence from him for that. And then I thought, well, obviously he was going to wholesale some. I saw it selling for about 99 pence in the shop, so they were going to pay about 75. So I started walking around. Some people bought, I mean, some people didn't. But it's actually the first time I actually started walking the markets, because, I mean, for the years before, when I was in London, I mean, my idea of going to get groceries was just going straight to the supermarket, Sainsbury or Tesco's or one of Safeway and those kind of places in those days, I wasn't really a market person as such. I mean, I just went, I bought my juice, the few bits and pieces that I want, and, but then I started beginning to understand, this market culture, the smaller grocery shops and so forth, where they were selling a lot of the things that from really back home that people wanted is what is in the smaller independent shops.
Sure. So yeah, this kind of ignited this idea to have this tea business, right?
No, well, that didn't even ignite it.
Oh, okay.
What happened? I started selling the road until back in Brixton again, funny enough. One of the Indian shopkeepers, right, he was laughing at me, basically making a joke, and said, because, I mean, I had this stuff was in a little plastic bag, this little bush of leaves. I had this little photocopy label saying Cersei tea. So he just made a joke and said to me, "Are you calling this tea? Where's the tea bag?"
Okay.
So he was like, you call this thing tea?
Yeah.
Right? And he said, "There's no tea bags in here." And I don't know, this thing just stuck in my head. And I'm like, tea bags? And then I went into a few, whilst I was selling, I went into a few herbal shops. Because at that time now, the herbal tea shops were, the herbal shops, food shops were now emerging also,
Okay, yeah.
selling a lot of herbal teas and so forth.
Sure.
Then I went in there, and then it dawned on me that basically, this stuff that these guys are calling herbal tea is really the same bush in a tea bag. It's bush tea, what we go up in the Caribbean calling bush tea, in a tea bag. And it was premium product. We're selling more than coffee and Milo and all these different things, So then my engineering knowledge then started kicking in. I was like, hey, that is not a bad idea after all. And that was the beginning of it.
Okay. So I'm guessing you used some of that money that you made from selling to that trader in Brixton. And what did you do to start the business? Like, how did it?
Well, I mean, the first aim is I'm going to go buy a tea bag machine.
Okay.
Yeah. And you realize the cheapest tea bag machine, I think, out to Argentina at the time was like about 15,000-20,000 US dollars.
Wow.
And then it's not only that you need a chopping machine, you need a blending machine, you need a shrinking machine. So that became the first challenge. I attempted to do it, and then it dawned on me, hey, why don't I go and look for a company that might be into packaging teas and see if they would package it for me. So then that began the hunt, all over the UK, some places in Europe. I wrote to all kinds of people, and some of them were like, yes, they could pack for you. And then when I took the bush there, they're like, no, because the stuff is bitter.
Oh, I see.
They don't want it contaminated. They don't even want it in the factory. They don't want it to contaminate all their nice flavor, because a lot of the herbal teas in those days were all these nice raspberries and blackcurrant flavored stuff, And there's me coming with this hostile, bitter leaf. Until, I was lucky out in Suffolk. I met this guy who had a big tea company, and I went to him, and then his his foreman was an engineer. His name was Tiny. He was there, right? And he looked at it and he said, his guy's name is Les. He said, but Les, we have that old machine at the back that we could do it at the back end. Because what happened is that then is when I realized this guy Tini, he was an engineer, right? And he loves doing new things and fixing things. And he's bored because everything in the factory is working. He don't have anything to do. You see what I'm saying? And there's this guy coming with this unusual stuff so Les basically said to him, okay, you want to go and do it? You could do it, but I don't want to do this factory. Go, it was about, I don't know, quarter of a mile away because Les had a farm and all kinds of stuff, right? There's a little shed. You go in there, you could knock yourself out when you're having to do and teabag this stuff for this guy.
Yeah.
So Teddy was happy because he had a new project to do. Okay. You know what I mean? So myself and Teddy basically started working on how to teabag, chop this stuff, get it to the right grade. And I mean, we talk science and engineering and the flow of the material and the moisture content and all this kind of stuff, you know what I mean to say? And then we started teabagging it for me,
Okay. This podcast has been brought to you in collaboration with the Black British Business Awards. And Mark actually won the Senior Leader of the Year category in 2024. And because of that, we've got a few quick fire questions for him. First one I've got for you, Mark, is what inspired you to put yourself forward or accept the nomination for the BBBA Awards?
I think, in a nutshell, I would say I would consider the BBBA Awards the most prestigious Black business awards in the UK. I mean, sometimes people either nominate me or ask me if I want to be part of an award, and we have refused many, because I see something as time consuming. In the early days, I loved it, obviously. When in the early days in business, I get an award and you're like, yeah, you know what I mean? Now, because what I'm trying to do globally and I'm always around the place, I am a bit more skeptical about, just going to do an award for the sake of having a emblem to say, hey, I won, in the Black Business Awards, the BBBA Awards, I felt that was a priority because, I mean, I see it as one of the more prestigious. A lot of effort is put into it in the way they present it, the professionalism and every single thing. And I felt I want to be part of that. And I mean, also to obviously increase your network in terms of, at least from a corporate level too, because they have a lot of corporate people there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. And obviously you won. This was again back last year in 2024. How did you feel when you won the award?
Well, I feel great. I mean, nobody wants to go to award and be second place because second place is not getting the trophy. So, I mean, it was definitely a great experience. The night was a great night, meeting, I mean, interestingly, at my table, I mean, I met people from banks that I didn't even know exist, so was good from that point of view. And I mean, meeting new potential prospects in terms of corporate clients that could now take our teas to their establishments and things like that. Yeah, so we benefited a lot from that.
Okay, great to hear. I mean, the theme for the BBBA Awards this year is Elevate. And what does the word elevate mean to you, do you think?
Well, elevate obviously means going up, as in an elevator, you know what I mean to say? And I mean, elevation is important because every business should be striving at all times, or striving is the word, yes, to elevate themselves. I mean, even if it's small, every year should be trying to do something that helps your business to grow, and sometimes it's not always good to look at a big jump. Sometimes there's a lot of small jumps that makes it steady Eddie. You know what I mean? Some people, I mean, sometimes in business we say, myself and my CEO have that sometimes we go with some people and they want to hit a 6, in cricket. You could either make runs by making 1, 2, and you keep steady and you could get 100 by doing 1, 2, 1, 2. Right. And then there's some people who go in there and try to lash a 6 at every single ball, and then they get a duck.
Yeah.
Yes, they get a 0.
Yeah.
So elevate by moving in stages, and I would advise everybody to try and do that way.
Okay. So that's what elevate means to you. Fantastic. And then just the last question, really. How did winning last year, how did it impact your career or your business, do you think?
I mean, I think it's really the career or business, I would say, is mainly just from recognition and the brand getting known as such. I mean, it was difficult to do any sort of measurement to say, well, okay, tea sales went up because of that. But I mean, I think definitely brand recognition, acknowledgement that I mean we are serious contender in our space and we're doing great things. And I mean, hopefully also it's encouragement to other Black businesses in the UK, on the world to realize that I mean you shouldn't pocket ourselves to feel that we could only sell our products into just this little community, just the whole world. I mean, we are fearless when it comes to selling. We got our products, we sell into South Korea. When I see a Chinese, I don't think about what I could buy from him. I think about what I could sell to him. And that's the mindset you have to have. You know what I mean? I'm going to give Ghana a little whack here. When I went to the Ghana, I couldn't believe why would they be selling the cocoa to all these European companies for them to make all these fancy chocolates and sell it back at 10 times the price. I mean, they should be making their own chocolate. Even if they have to make the chocolate in Europe and behave as with the Europeans. I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, I'll tell you one last thing. My dad was annoyed that I didn't actually end up having a factory in Guyana, and he said, "Oh, you're a colonialist, right?" Okay, so or imperialist, he called me.
Right.
I said, "But Dad, at least I imperialize myself because at least I am buying raw materials from my people. I'm the one who owned the factory in the UK. I'm the one that is selling it back to Guyana. It's not some guy from Europe that is buying it and paying us peanuts and then selling us back at the exorbitant price. So the more of us that can imperialize ourselves by having both the operation in Africa or the Caribbean and the operation in Europe or America, and then sell it to the rest of the world, the better for us."
Yeah. Okay. Great response. Great response. So there you have it. If you want to find out more about the Black British Business Awards, or if you want to nominate somebody for next year, you can do so by visiting the website, which is the BBBAwards.com. So you've got this product, and then how are you sort of getting it out there into the shops and to the market traders? I mean, who's doing that work?
Well, that is, I mean, I always call it, I call it a common sense approach. Those days, you don't have no Google. You don't have all this fancy stuff. I mean, I just went to the library. The first thing you identify, who's buying this stuff here? People from the Caribbean and in some cases, Africa, Caribbean people. Where do they live? Where do they shop? So I went into the library and I photocopied the yellow pages, all the grocery shops in first of all, I worked out where look at what they call a consensus, the population census book. There's
the census, yeah,
with the census, and it tells you the population demographics in each area.
Sure, yeah.
So when I looked at all the demographics, we have a high concentration of people from Africa and the Caribbean, right? And then I basically went to the yellow pages for each one of those areas. So obviously Brixton, Burn Harlesden, out in Luton, Birmingham, in Soho area, and everywhere in the country, right? And basically I would photocopy in the yellow pages all the grocery and supermarkets in those areas. And I put the product in a briefcase and I started going to each one of them. As simple as that.
Door to door?
Door to door.
Wow.
And basically the aim was to hit 50 of them every day.
Okay.
With the aim of, because in those days, I mean, when you don't have a product, when you have a product that a lot of people don't really know, or a brand that people don't know, it's a numbers game. And I began to realize that it's like every 10 shops would normally buy one.
Okay.
Buy from me. You know?
So 10% hit rate.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
10%. So you have 50 shops, you get 5 people. If I get 5 guys, right, to spend £20, that's £100 for the day.
Okay.
If I did 5 days of the week, that's £500. That's a lot of money in these days. You see what I'm saying? It's probably still a lot of money now anyhow. You know what I mean? To be making that going door to door. And then the little tricks you do, I mean, normally you find in London, there's a range of shops. Normally, say if you get one of them to buy, okay, the other 10 might not buy.
Yeah.
But then the trick you will normally do is that when you start delivering to the one guy that you managed to get to buy, you don't go and park in front of his house. I go and park a block away. And then so when you happen to deliver past all the shops that told you no and keep shaking and saying to them, good morning, and they realize you're going to deliver to the guy there. Then one day they're like, well, if he's going to this guy, so
I want some as well.
Something is going to this thing. And then slowly but surely you start, each one of them start taking away. There's little tricks in the trade that you end up, you don't go park in front of him. Then nobody knows that he's buying the stuff. So you pass all the shops.
Yeah.
It's a harder job, yeah. So I mean, you got to walk up block.
Yeah.
You walk slow also. You make sure that you walk in such a way that you could see them so you could say hi.
Okay.
Or sometimes, I mean, little tricks you might do is like, even if you wanted to buy a drink or something like that, I wouldn't buy the drink all the time from the guy who's buying the shop. I'll stop him by one of the guys who didn't want to buy the shop. buy any stuff
Okay.
for me.
Sure,
So he
sure.
sees that I'm doing a delivery.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, oh, I've got to go and delivery. See you later.
But do you remember your pitch back then? Like if I was the shopkeeper, for example, and I maybe gave you 30 seconds, what would be your pitch to me? Like how are you trying to sell the tea?
I'm not. Let's see. It wasn't anything fancy because only the seriously I had. I just said to them. I mean, some of them knew it
Yeah.
by that time. It's a seriously, and I think my accent helped sometimes.
Okay, yeah.
Funny enough, I
Yeah.
mean, when they're like, "Okay, you're from the Caribbean," so I have got a lot of Caribbean people, right? And he said they buy this, and I mean, a lot of Indian shopkeepers. I mean, they understand this sort of stuff, right? Because they're thinking like, why would this guy go to so much effort to sell something if it's not something that his people
Yeah,
use?
sure.
You see what I'm saying? So many of them were like, I mean, that's why the orders weren't big. The order would start off like, I'll take a try. I'll buy 6 packets, £6. I don't mind.
Okay.
I just want it on the shelf.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Then he's going to realize it. The next thing he's going to say a dozen.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So most of my orders in the early days would have been anything from £6, £20 sometimes is a big one. You know what I mean? So if I really push hard, I say to the guy, but why don't you take 6 of them? But I always wanted to make sure I get paid anyhow. I never want to leave anything on the shelves. But I would say to them, if it doesn't sell, give me a month, I'll take it back.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? I say, so some of them will say, okay, fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how but it also that's how I ended up with a lot of shops.
Mm.
Because I mean, within 4 months of the first 6 months, I had about 500 shops to 1,000. Because a lot of little shops all over, and that's where you remain to build the brand name.
Yeah.
See?
My gosh. I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, there's so many like ethnic shops across the country.
Yes.
I mean, even back in the 90s or the 2000s.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get my head around you doing the hard yards. You're literally going from shop to shop.
Yes.
Up and down the country.
Yeah.
Oh, Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds.
I mean, because the other thing you would normally do is when you photocopy from the yellow pages, the supermarkets and grocery, I will also photocopy all the bed and breakfasts or guest houses in the areas.
Because they stopped.
Because when I basically, no, not to sell them, so somewhere to stay. Because when I head out to London,
okay,
I'm not coming back until the car is empty. So sometimes you're selling and you just find yourself in the middle of somewhere in Birmingham, Manchester. You don't really know where you are anyhow.
Yeah.
And then you go back into your book now and then you look to see where's the nearest guest house that you could stay at. And there's like £30 or something like that. Because I'm not going to drive back to London with half the car. I might as well pay £30 and stay a night.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of times, sometimes you don't even know where you are. But that's where I think even the dispatch stuff came in handy because I was able to read the maps properly. So where a lot of people were afraid, another person might have been afraid to go to places that are unknown. I was accustomed to going into unknown zones, going to places that I don't know anything and do something,
Yeah.
So, all I used to, there's only one rule I had. Anytime, wherever I'm selling, there must be shops. If I'm driving anywhere and I don't see shops, I get worried because I'm thinking I'm losing time in the day.
Yeah.
But once when I head out to Manchester, in any hour I'm hitting, 5, 10 shops or wherever it is, I'm happy.
Yeah.
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 If you start driving and you're not seeing shops, then something is going wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So you're doing this hard yards. The orders start coming in.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that eventually the idea of you going from shop to shop just became unmanageable.
Oh yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It became totally unmanageable because what began to happen is that in any 1 week, you'll be there in London, the guy in Manchester, the guy in Birmingham, the guy in Bristol, they all calling you, could you bring a couple of dozen? I mean, you're not going to drive up there for that, So then I began to say, okay, how do I get the products into these shops without me being there? So then we moved to as I'm doing sales, sometimes you begin to meet these guys where you call a man on a van, a wholesaler.
Sure.
He might be based in Birmingham, they have wholesalers. In Manchester, they have wholesalers. And most wholesalers will normally cover probably about a 20-25 mile radius from where they're located. Yeah. So then I started approaching these wholesalers. So, hey, would you be interested? What sort of margins do you work on? A lot of times, some of them are working like on 20% margin. So I said, if I take off 20% from the price I'm selling the shops, would you buy it from me? Right? And the first thing was like, well, I mean, who's buying it from you in the first case? And then I'll be able to say, well, look, in Birmingham, I have these list of shops, Mr. Ali, Mr. Khan, whoever they are, they buy the stuff from me, but I come all the way from London. So if you take a pallet from me now, right, okay, you could then service them because I'm not here. I only come here every 6 weeks. And then that's how I started picking up the wholesalers. So when guys call me now, then I was able to know, eventually I was able to go to Birmingham, just spend 5 hours, drive up there 2 hours, drop off a pallet, and just head back to London because there's one guy servicing there. And then the same thing I did with London, you start finding wholesalers that looked after a lot of the smaller shops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how we started moving in. And then eventually we then found somebody who could even sell to the wholesalers, which was basically the earlier company was a company called Enco. They still do the Enco and a hot pepper sauce.
Oh, okay.
But there's a massive company now. I mean, Grace eventually bought them. They bought them over,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they became what we call a distributor for the whole country.
Mm.
But by that time now I needed more time to spend in the factory. Because now, I now began to build my own factory in Southeast London, where I now bought my own machinery.
Wow.
I had to train the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm at the forefront of the whole technology. And I mean, the challenging thing about tea bag and herbal teas, it's not like your normal PG Tips tea. You see, PG Tips is a one grain of tea, right? Herbal teas, there's lemongrass, there's cerasee, there's peppermint, and all of them have different behavioral patterns. It's like you having a car and basically you're trying to get a car to drive with diesel, petrol, water, kerosene oil. You want to be able to put, so it's a very technical thing. I mean, I don't know, it's not easy for you to, you got to be passionate and you really got to understand you need the tea bag, a range of different teas with different behavioral patterns, because the machine, it doesn't like it just like that.
Yeah.
You have a car, you just one day you decide, okay, today I'm putting in diesel, and it's not, you're not going to be a happy car.
So is that where your chemical engineering background came in?
That's where the whole chemical and the science and I mean, I say to people, I'm not really a herbalist. I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a science of the material that gets me going more.
Yeah.
So I'll go and read up everything and I'll do tests and I'll find out all the moisture content and the particle size, the tea bag paper I'm using, the absorption rate. The farmers we started dealing with, I'll go to farms, I'll teach them how to dry it slowly to make sure they get a maximum amount of strength. Don't put it in the sun, don't burn it up. Some might need some sun, I don't need sun, you know what I mean? Invest in them, help them to put their drying unit in the back of the yard and all these kinds of stuff, because remember these products, they weren't commercial products, not rice and sugar.
Yeah.
So, first of all, you go to some areas in Guyana, okay, the first lot I went to did myself, but then you go back to Guyana, you tell a guy, go and get some crybush. You're like, why am I going to waste my time going to get crybush to sell you? Who the hell is going to be buying that amount of crybush? I got into trouble in the first case. That was one of my first challenges. Because after I did the first batch myself, and then I started getting into the whole tea bag situation, right? I then had a set of guys in there. I said, okay, I need you to go and get another £1,000 for me. And they couldn't understand. I think the word thousand just blew their mind. They're like, nah, he can't.
It's too much risk. Yeah.
He can't be serious. Yeah. I sent the money, but they're just waiting to hear me say it was a mistake. So what happened? I then invested all this money, had all these nice cartoons ready, got pre-orders, and then I said, okay, ready to ship. And they had like £100. Because they didn't think that's the fact that I said I wanted £1,000, right? They were just waiting to hear I made a mistake.
Oh, I see.
So I then end up in a pretty much a cash flow issue where I invested all this money into all these nice cartoons, actually had orders, no product. Okay. All because guys couldn't understand what he couldn't have meant £100.
Okay.
So long waiting for me to say it was a mistake.
So it's like managing expectations on both sides.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So we're making progress here. Orders are starting to come in. You talked about this factory as well that you built in Southeast London. And I think, you started building ahead of steam. And then eventually, correct me if I'm wrong, you decided to build a factory facility in Jamaica. Is that right? And this is a few years on now.
No, that was a few years on because that was now coming into like credit crunch time, because obviously by this time now I went through a period where as you walk in and you're selling, people started asking for new teas, and then you began to, you're looking for unique selling points in what you're selling. You're looking to see the big guys like the Twinings, what they were doing and what you could do better. Little things. Sometimes, a lot of the ideas come from just listening to people. Probably that's where, as I said, the entrepreneur mind comes along. But a little simple thing like, say, lemon and ginger. Our cerasee tea was one of the top selling teas in a lot of the shops, right? Then we did the peppermint, we did lemongrass, I think it was. And we were ticking along the road. And then one day I was in Tottenham, And I mean, I was feeling quite pleased myself that my Series C was the big selling tea. And I was speaking to this guy, Rashmi, and he said, "Oh, no, this Dalgety." He said, "Nah, the top selling tea in this shop right now is lemon and ginger by Twinings." I said, "You make a joke." He said, "What's so special about that?" He said, "I don't know, people like it." So I went home, and then my mom was in the UK, and I saw a box by her.
Mhm.
And then when she was about to brew it, I saw her go and get a piece of ginger and start scraping more ginger inside.
Okay.
Like, I mean, why are you buying that? She said, "Well, it's got a good taste, but it's not gingery enough."
Mm.
So I'm like, "I'm gonna make a lemon and ginger that you're gonna feel the ginger." You see what I'm saying? So Twinings made us lemon and ginger. I was weak with a bit of lemon. I make a lemon and ginger that's strong in ginger.
Yeah.
All right, that became one of our top sellers. Zoom.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? But that was just from a basic of first of all, I was annoyed when the guy said to me, "But my tea wasn't the top seller."
Yeah.
Then I go and I saw my mom, and then I saw some other West Indian women also doing it. Buy Twinings, lemon and ginger, and they're scraping and adding things, yeah, to
Okay.
make it to get it up to the level that they
Yeah.
want to think. And then you realize that's a good USP.
So would you describe that as your, well, you talk about USP, you know, how would you define your product? Does your product have an extra kick
Yeah,
compared to
that
the
is
other?
Dalgety's
Yeah.
USP. I mean, our teas always tend to be stronger because
Yeah.
one of the things we realize that our consumer that we target is basically people from Africa, Caribbean, Asia, and they like spicy and stronger flavors. I mean, you know, our packaging might not be as terribly pristine like some of the big European tea companies, right? Okay, but what you find is that they might have the absolutely what people might say A plus packaging, but the product don't taste good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Our product basically, if you say you're giving you peppermint, you're gonna think that you're gonna smell the peppermint coming on your nose.
Yeah.
If you think the ginger, you feel the ginger in your chest.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But the packaging might not be as good as the European guys. You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But we give you what we say we're giving you.
Yeah. I mean, I know with your tea, sometimes you can use a tea bag 2-3 times over, right?
Exactly. We didn't even, that was another USP. We didn't even
Yeah.
think of that.
Yeah.
Until one day, I mean, somebody wrote somewhere in an article, "Oh, I love Dalgety tea because I could make 2 and 3 cups of tea from one tea bag." That's an interesting point. You know, but I didn't think of that one. Sometimes
Yeah.
when you're selling, you're doing things. I just want to make sure people know I'm making lemon and ginger, I'm making sour drink, you're gonna taste it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that is us, you know what I mean? I mean, I always say, you know, if you go to a Caribbean or African restaurant, people are more concerned about the flavor. And there must be probably a lot of food in the plate. I mean, you go to a French restaurant, they do all these drawings and little cucumber here, and the thing looks like, you know, you don't want to eat it. It looks so, it's got, like as though it's art,
It's a
a
piece
work
of
of
art.
art.
Yeah.
But if it don't taste good, we're not interested, and it's not a lot.
Yeah.
What we want is flavorsome, enough food in the plate.
What a great story. I mean, fast tracking, you know, you've obviously been able to expand the business. I think back in 2016, you developed 10 new lines of tea. And today you've got, is it nearly 40 different varieties
yes.
of tea? Critically, last year, 2024, you were able to win this competition with Channel 4 and Lloyds Bank, which basically gave you national coverage on on an advert.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little about that and what impact did it have on the business in terms of like the bottom line and stuff?
Well, I mean, it had a reasonable impact on the business, I would say, because, you know, for all the years we've basically been targeting the ethnic market. It was like the first time in 20 years that any mainstream, you know, media establishment was doing anything of the form for a smaller ethnic or minority, for minority businesses that were able, because there's a lot of marvelous products by a lot of minorities or ethnic people from all parts of the world, but it never gets a chance to move in the mainstream because a lot of the bigger corporate companies hug the place.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, sometimes some of those shelves, I mean, if you go and I mean, not knocking Coca-Cola, you go in the shelves in Sainsbury, the whole shelf is Coca-Cola. I mean, and then even the other non-Coca-Cola products are owned by Coca-Cola because a lot of times, sometimes they actually pay the supermarkets up front for the space.
Sure.
Yeah, they got £1 million before they even sell from Coca-Cola just for the shelf space. Now you going in there now with no money to give them. You know what I'm saying, right? Anyhow, the bottom line is that we basically end up going into this competition and we won it. We end up getting an advert going out for the first time in our history in a mainstream Channel 4 advert. one of the tricks in the trade with that we did and that really helped us is focusing the advert. Because you remember that our product is that is popular in the ethnic market. It's popular in the cosmopolitan cities where there's a high ethnic population, but it's not popular right across the board. You're not going to see Dalgety tea in the middle of Yorkshire or something like that, or in Aberdeen or something like that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you don't understand what you're doing there, right, you could go and put that on, and if a guy's sitting in Somerset and he sees, this looks interesting, it's not going to be in his corner shop.
Yeah, sure.
So what we did, we ended up focusing the advert for everybody to go to Amazon.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Where we were able to also measure, right, and see how much people are visiting,
Good track.
and you know what I mean, because at least if a guy's sitting on a sudden set of Amazon and he sees it advert on Channel 4, like, this looks interesting. Oh, I like ginger. They say it's strong. Okay, click, we go on his phone, and tomorrow morning is in his doorstep.
Clever.
So that was the formula, and that really helped us because the impressions went up online by about 1,067%. Sales went up across the board. I can't remember all the different numbers, online sales definitely went up. I mean, yeah.
The advert featured Judy Love.
Yes.
The comedian. Yes. And it's got you doing a bit of dancing as well in the background. Today, you're stocked in like the likes of Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's. I mean, I don't know how did you get into those stores off the back of the advert, or did you get into those stores?
We were foundation brand there because that was early days, almost 20 years now. I mean,
okay.
We were able to get in when they started creating a World Food Division and so forth. True, a different story along, grinding and convincing the buyer. Then that's why it's so important to build your brand and the independent.
Sure.
Because some people, they come with a product. They just started and they want to go straight to Sainsbury with no proof of concept, basically, that the product is selling. And these guys are not going to take your product on with no proof of concept. So it's important. And then also you get a chance to practice. You get people to review and tell you, because, sometimes you make a product and you give it to your friends or you give it to your family. Nobody wants you to feel bad. They're going to tell you it's okay. It's when the person who don't know you say it's okay, right, or go and buy it again, then your product is okay.
Okay.
Because friends and family, they don't want you to feel bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're always going to give you a good review.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fantastic the fact you're in those stores. I mean, Mark, you've obviously had tremendous success in your career. I mean, it's been 93 to now. 32 years, 33 years.
30 years.
So it's certainly not an overnight success. You've really put the hard yards in. But over that time, you've had a lot of success. I mean, what would you, if you had to pinpoint your success down to either, is it mainly down to luck? Is it down to hard work? Or is it down to talent? What out of those three would be the biggest contributor towards your success, would you say? Luck, hard work, or talent?
It's all three,
I
mean, it's all three. It's difficult to say one. I mean, I think some of the things I like to say to people is that you really need to stay focused, and you got to be very determined in what you're doing, and you got to also try and enjoy what you're doing. You got to make work play, because then there's a lot of pressure a lot of times. You see what I'm saying? There's got to be a greater good in what you're trying to do that makes you get up in the morning, regardless of what is happening, to do and succeed against the odds. You know what I mean? When you bring in a product that probably might not have been conventional, in a market as such. And if you do something that's conventional, you're still going to have a challenge because it's already established. So you either have to find a unique selling point within what you're doing in order to make it successful, and then if you're doing something that nobody has done, you still have to prove to them that, hey, this thing works and it's cool, But I think focus and determination, I always say, is a must. And then one of our sayings, I mean, with all the challenges we had, one of the things I came up with is that I said, crisis is a dangerous opportunity, because a lot of times it's crisis that has created a situation where we've grown.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes you take the risk and you do something, and you probably had to do it, because you wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have grown. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. My last question really is, obviously I don't want to retire you, but at some point you might have to start thinking about succession. Have you thought about that? Who, because it's your own business, family business. Who will take over the business once?
I mean, we are working on that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I'm trying to see if my kids are interested. I mean, that's a tall order. I mean, my daughter is in business at the moment. At least she's studying business. Saying that, I mean, I'm also trying to make the business work without me being in the business. So, I mean, I've now structured the business. I've got a CEO who came from a corporate world. He runs the day-to-day thing. And I mean, because he comes from a very corporate structure, we don't put in systems in place whereby every system, it's all about systems now. To put systems in place that work when you're not there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and then ultimately, you know, begin to see how to turn the business into a small to medium-sized business, a corporate entity. Yeah, where people are coming and working for a corporation and not necessarily for Mark Dalgety as such.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, now I got people working with me that don't even know. They probably see me walking every few months and so forth, but some of them don't even know who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying, just see this guy arrives and sometimes, you know, and that's where we're slowly trying to get to.
Okay. Well, very exciting, and I'm sure everybody will be really intrigued to find out how the business develops over the next few years. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the How I Crushed It podcast.
Yes, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
And that's it. Big thanks to Mark for coming into the studio and flying all the way from Guyana for the interview. We joked about it. He didn't come necessarily for the interview, but nevertheless, big thanks for him for traveling all that way to come and see us. As we discussed in the podcast, it certainly hasn't been an overnight success for him. Sort of 32, 33 years of hard slog, but he's really finding the rewards now. And you know, as we discussed, that big national TV campaign was only happened last year. So, you know, all the rewards that he's getting now, certainly well deserved. Are you a big fan of the tea? What's your best flavour? What's your favourite flavour? Let us know. Get in contact with us. Send us an email to howicrustedit@gmail.com, or if you want to get in contact with us on social media, please do so. Once again, thank you to the Black British Business Awards for this collaboration and partnership. If you want to find out more about the Black British Business Awards, you can do so. I'll attach the link to the show notes. And that's pretty much it for this week. So we will catch you on the next show.